Hello and welcome back to the Beyond the Apex podcast. Today we are talking about the Italian Grand Prix and the absolute scenes in Monza.
Oh, absolutely incredible. I mean, if you just take a look at, the picture after, at the podium of the fans.
100,000 tifosi on the main straight.
On the main straight.
Oh,
unheard of. Absolutely unheard of.
I mean, it just shows how much of a kind of religion Ferrari is out in Italy. They just lap it up, and it's great to see. Obviously, not to spoil who wins yet, but yeah, I mean, if we go on to Red Bull, they were nowhere.
I mean, you're seeing Perez battle like, oh, he's just overtaken for P7.
And then Max is above him.
Yeah.
It's insane. I mean, they were 7/10 off in qualifying. I mean, firstly, if we talk about qualifying, it was the closest between teammates we've seen in a while. I mean, the Red Bulls, the Mercs, the Ferraris and the McLarens, the closest gap, the furthest gap between teammates was 35 thousandths of a second. I mean, it was 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. And I mean, Red Bull were at the back of that, and they were nowhere. P6 in the race, not anywhere near Hamilton.
Yeah,
and I mean, for their constructors, Christian Horner must be so scared right now.
Absolutely. I mean, because we said it in the last podcast and we'll say it again, all of these other teams, with both drivers doing so well, and then Red Bull to be that bottom, layer of teammates.
Literally, I mean, they needed Checo to be where he is now at the start of the season, getting points when the car was fast.
They didn't need Max to be where he is.
Very true. Yeah.
They needed Max to be performing, to his full extent.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see. Where I feel like both standings are going to go down to the final race, which is going to be so exciting.
And also, we've not had this for ages.
We haven't had this for so long. I mean, 2022, we felt like we were going to have it with Ferrari and Red Bull. Didn't in the end. I mean, 2021 is just the best season we've ever had in Formula One. Went down to the final lap of the final race. It was brilliant. Yeah. But I feel like it's got that feeling again. It hasn't got the same as 2021, but it feels like it's all coming up to a massive crescendo between McLaren, Ferrari and Red Bull for the constructors and between Lando and Max for the drivers.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we talk about Mercedes firstly, I mean, George had a good qualifying. Yeah. The incident at the first corner really hindered his race, but they were nowhere really.
No, and like you said, we're talking about the likes of Checo and that, but Mercedes were above them. I mean that says a lot. Maybe that's a positive, but it's a positive purely because Red Bull have dropped off.
Yeah, literally, it's like we always say, I mean, Red Bull have just fully dropped behind everyone now. And it's not other teams doing well, it's just Red Bull doing badly. So it's going to be really interesting to see kind of the next following races where Mercedes' pace is at, because obviously Belgian Grand Prix, they were the quickest. So it's going to be interesting to see where they kind of come back again.
Yeah.
But I mean, the big news this weekend was Kimi Antonelli, the 18-year-old kid. Makes us all feel like failures. Signing for Mercedes for 2025. Obviously, he was in FP1 and set the fastest lap of practice, and then binned it into the wall of Parabolica. I mean, it wasn't the greatest start, but Toto was like, "No, it's all good, Kimi. Do not worry." And actually, the engineers have been looking at his lap times, and through the Lesmos, no one beat him across the weekend. He was the quickest through the Lesmos. Wow. Which is insane. He had one lap in practice and he was already just on it immediately. So this kid is the future. He's going to be the next Max Verstappen. I think Toto's pulled a blinder by signing him, and it's going to be really interesting. He's going to be in Mexico for FP1 and then doing the Abu Dhabi test as well. But I mean, it's going to be very
interesting. I think we're saying silly season is kind of we're in it now, and we're seeing people signing for teams. Like Lewis going to Ferrari, and I was just kind of thinking, it's going to be an interesting few seasons.
It's going to be so good. I mean, 2025 is lining up to be this incredible season with, I can't believe I'm saying this, Merc v Ferrari v McLaren, and I don't think Red Bull's going to be in the running. I mean, they've had so many people leave their team. I mean, the only two main people they've got now is Christian Horner and Hannah Schmitz, who are just kind of trying to hold this team together, and Pierre Vacher in engineering as well.
And I'm just thinking as well, like, if they lose Max...
Oh, they're done. They're done.
They're going to become, the next
midfield. Yeah, it's literally, that's it for them. They are losing it. I mean, I'm so glad, firstly, that Lando didn't join them, because that is a sinking ship and no one wants to be in Red Bull at the moment.
Yeah.
And I feel like Max is going to pull a blinder by going to Mercedes. I really do think so. And I think that is going to be Mercedes lineup going into 2026. I feel like it's going to be Kimi Antonelli, the generational talent, and Max Verstappen, the generational talent. And I think that's going to be it. And it's going to be so interesting.
I think as well it's going to come down to Max looking at how Kimi Antonelli performs in that car
100%.
to then look and say, actually, I could do well in that car too, and then it could. In a way, it's not going to be Mercedes bringing him in, it's Max actually going into Mercedes and thinking, do you know what, that's the future for me?
That's it, yeah. And I mean, you want to be at a works team, and I don't think Red Bull's the works team he wants to be at. And it is going to be, as you said, Max going to Merck and being like, do you know what, that's it. That's it for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we go on to Ferrari, the predestinato, as the chosen one for Ferrari, wins for the second time at Monza.
Incredible.
And the scenes were just unbelievable. The photos, as you said, everything. The one stop which didn't look like it was going to work, worked, and the upgrades are clearly working.
Yeah, I was going to say the upgrades are clearly because we saw last race weekend actually it was so positive, and then this weekend it's even more positive. Like they've come out on top.
Unbelievable.
And
they had the pace. I mean, the most insane stat I saw after the race was that on Leclerc's second stint, on those 33 lap old hards, there was only one time he went out of the 123s. He was so consistent, and that shows where Ferrari have got that car in terms of tyre degradation, which we were saying last season was their kind of kryptonite, the tyre degradation. The tyres were just falling away. And now they've got that sorted, they've got the upgrades, they're going to be going for it. And I mean, Baku is Leclerc's hunting ground. I mean, in the fourth fastest car in 2021, he got pole. This is his hunting ground. He could win 2 on the trot. And do you know what? He's only 20 points off Lando in the championship.
I was just going to say that.
This could be it. I mean, he could be doing a championship run now for the ages. I mean, could you imagine if we get to Abu Dhabi and there's 3 cars in the running?
I mean, that's stuff of dreams.
Stuff of dreams. I mean, it brings us back to kind of like 2010, where you had 4 cars in the running, and Vettel, who had never led the championship in 2010, came home to win it on the final race. I mean, could you imagine if Lando or Leclerc does that? Oh,
I mean, can't wait, bring it on.
Yeah, bring it on. But I mean, Sainz in P4 as well, very decent race for their constructors. They are fighting for both championships as well, and what a season we're now having.
And actually we were having a conversation before this, watching the highlights. I mean, Leclerc was so consistent, and obviously, he finished in front. But, we're going to go on to McLaren. Clearly, they haven't dropped off because Piastri was on Leclerc. And you were saying, give it 2 more laps and we reckon he would have been there.
100%. So it's really close between them two now. And, I mean, it's 2 giants.
I was going to say, it's amazing it comes down to strategy.
Literally, it fully came down to strategy. And how are we saying this? It came down to strategy and Ferrari won it.
I mean, hello?
Can I just say, Fred Vasseur, take a bow, because he's clearly taken this team from 2023 and gone, right, let's tackle it one by one. Let's tackle the strategy, let's tackle the radio engineers, let's tackle the engineering. And it's now all coming together in this, as I said, crescendo, that everything's just come together, and Monza's shown that. Very, very, very good race. But if we move on to McLaren, we got a 2-3, but I think it's somehow the most controversial race this season.
Yeah,
because we came into this race going, do you know what? Lando has a chance to win the World Championship. Lando qualified on pole, Max qualified 6th. And this was where we were like, well, do you know what? Lando genuinely has a real chance here. I mean, if it had ended like that, the gap would have been 50 points with 7 races to go, which is the stuff of dreams for me. But then, obviously, Lando kept the lead into turn 1, and then Oscar battled him and made a sensational move. There's no doubt, a sensational move into turn 3. But what is McLaren doing? They're throwing away this opportunity at both championships by trying to hold this kind of, we've got 2 number 1 drivers malarkey. And it doesn't make sense for me.
I completely agree. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because then, as a team, how do you kind of... it's difficult to then, we've had the controversy where they put Lando first and they were like, or they put Oscar first and were like, no, Oscar has to win, Lando, don't battle him. And it's kind of like, team orders, we say it all the time, to what extent,
do you do them?
Do you do them? And I mean, like you said, we've got loads more races to go. And, maybe as a team, not enforcing team orders here, it was extremely silly in a way, because like you said, Max was P6.
This was their chance to get a 1-2, get a load of points, fend off against Charles together, instead of just trying to
push Lando to kind of be P1, and then obviously Oscar kind of back him up.
Yeah, exactly.
Then increase that point.
Work as a team. That's the thing. And I mean, look, I've got to look at it at both points, because obviously, can you tell I'm a McLaren fan?
No.
No, not at all. As a McLaren fan, I'm going, what are you doing? Look, Lando gave you the win in Hungary because he wanted to keep that teammate. Why aren't you helping him now? Why aren't you helping him? Why aren't you being that back runner when your teammate's in the championship battle? You help. And clearly, Oscar's shown he doesn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, papaya rules are crazy, but then from a neutral's point of view, you've got to say this is incredible. I mean, Oscar's gone, do you know what? No,
Screw it.
I'm going to battle. And it's incredible stuff, because for any other team I'll be like, this is amazing. But it's really giving Vettel and Webber. Obviously, Mark Webber is Oscar Piastri's manager. And Will Bruxton brought up a very, very interesting point, that maybe in Oscar's contract there is a clause that says, you can't do that to me. You can't have a multi-21 situation where I'm going to be the back gunner for Lando. Maybe Webber has included that in Oscar's contract to avoid the kind of controversy that Webber had in his career. That's Will Buxton said that after, and I thought that's genius.
Yeah,
that's genius, because that might actually be the case. That's why Zach Brown is always saying, look, we've got 2 number 1 drivers, because he's contractually obligated. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what McLaren now do. I mean, it's Baku coming up, somewhere where we should be strong again.
But with the likes of Ferrari.
With the likes of Ferrari as well, we're going to have to be a team rather than be 2 drivers that are battling against each other. It doesn't make sense. And Ferrari 100% have that kind of teamwork where Sainz is like, do you know what, I'm out of this, let's help Leclerc get his world championship. It's going to be so interesting. I'm gripped to this F1 season.
I think everyone is.
Yeah, everyone is. And I mean, with Max getting P6, is going to be the trundling up the top, and then Leclerc and Lando going for it. Oh, it's the stuff of dreams. Stuff of dreams. But I mean, if we finally talk about Aston Martin, I mean, Alonso was close to points but didn't get any, and Lance kind of annoyed everyone, including Piastri, who said he's driving like he does in karting. So yeah, Lance didn't have the best race, and neither did Alonso. So not what.
And as we've been saying that this whole time. I mean, they're just kind of nowhere at the moment, and it's normal to say for the likes of Haas or Racing Bulls or Sauber, sorry. But Aston Martin not being anywhere is a bit.
It's a bit weird. I mean, again, we said it last podcast, and we'll say it again. This is not where Aston Martin should be with the facilities they have. I mean, you said it perfectly with the fact the investment that Lawrence Stroll is making into this team. It shouldn't be the case. So it's going to be, as we said, it's going to be interesting to see where they go in 2026. But I think they are kind of just writing off these results.
No, I agree. I agree. But let's take a break and then move on to Alpine. Right, let's move on to Alpine. I mean, we just had to move the whole results up, by far.
Yeah, they were
nowhere. I mean, we've said it again, we'll say it all the time, I think, at the moment. Nowhere, what, P14 and P15? Yeah. I mean, it's not nowhere, but it's not where they want to be.
Absolutely not. And I mean, it is interesting to see that Ocon did have a better race than Gasly. Obviously, both of them were involved in incidents throughout the race. But it's interesting to see that Ocon still has a heart in this team. He's still, even though he's leaving and they've treated him badly ever since he's ever since Monaco really, where he made that move on Gasly, he is still somewhat outperforming Gasly. So it's going to be interesting to see how much of a push he makes to kind of prove himself in these final races. But yeah, in terms of car performance, they were nowhere.
No, agreed. And moving on to Williams, I mean, we've just received some really interesting news.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Franco Colapinto replaced Logan Sargent, mid-season swap from James Vowles.
We've seen that's 2 mid-season swaps now.
In the last 2 years, and it's going to be really interesting to see how kind of James takes this, because obviously Franco Colapinto is in the junior academy for Williams, and I don't really know what James was going for with this, because obviously he hasn't got a seat for him next season. They've signed Sainz and Alex, which is going to be a really, really strong lineup going into the future. And I mean, is James just trying to kind of give Colapinto a presenting ground that he can just show himself off for other teams? Or it's going to be weird, because if Colapinto has really good pace, which he did show this race, obviously being very close to Alex and Alex being in the points as well, I mean, it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be interesting, and like you said, they've signed for 2025, is it?
Yeah.
But what year has signed his contract?
2025. So they've got no seats.
No, it's just a year.
Yeah, no, I think it's 2 years. 3 years with an option to leave after 2.
Right. Okay.
So I mean,
is he looking that far into the future? Maybe.
I mean, possibly, but then would you not want the proven talent of Sainz rather than a driver that you have in your junior academy and you trust, but that's been out of Formula 1 for a couple of years? So I don't really know where he's going with that, but it's great that he's kind of giving junior drivers a chance, because obviously there was rumours that he was trying to get a deal with Liam Lawson, that he was trying to get a deal with Mick Schumacher for the rest of the half of the season. But he then decided to go with the junior academy, which is very, very strong leadership from him. But yeah, I mean, it's radical. It is radical.
I mean, I guess we'll see the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, the upgrades are working, and they got the points.
Yeah, which is good for Williams. I mean, they'll be wanting that. And the car, they're going to be wanting to push. I mean, that might be another option. Maybe they're looking more for like constructors to then,
have the money to be able to,
then put into the 2025 season. Than when they've got that strong driver lineup, they've matched it with the strong car.
That is it. Because I do think we've already seen. I mean, it's Colin Pinto's first race, and he's already P12, really close to Alex. So clearly, they are trying to just get as many points as they can, which Logan wouldn't have given them. Because it's so close to the constructors at the moment. Obviously, Haas having pulled away with their brilliant results at the start of the season. But maybe Williams is trying to catch up now with their upgrade package. So it's all coming together at the front of the field, at the back of the field, for this crescendo of an end, which is going to be brilliant.
It's going to be so good.
Yeah. But I mean, going on to Racing Bulls, nowhere again, and obviously Yuki falling behind Ricardo again.
Which is interesting. We wouldn't have said that. I mean, we've said Yuki was performing so well.
Oh my God!
At the start of the season, we even said he like Red Bull.
Yeah, we were thinking that it was going to be a mid-season swap for Red Bull. He was doing that well. I mean, he was chucking in the P10s, the P11s, way ahead of Ricardo. And now it feels like Ricardo, now that he's been given that confidence that, look, you're not going to be replaced mid-season, you've got the season, he's been calmed a little bit, and now he's kind of just suiting into a rhythm again, and that's what you need in Formula 1, you need your rhythm. And at the moment, where you're compared to your teammate, he's doing well. Yeah,
agreed. We'll talk about Sauber, nowhere. No green car, cool.
No,
are they even on the grid at this point?
I don't even think so. No.
And then obviously, lastly, Haas.
I mean Magnussen in the points.
Yeah.
But he's got a race ban.
Yeah, so obviously, he got penalty points in that race, which then meant that his penalty points were stacked up to over 12, wasn't it?
Yes, 12.
And then you get a race ban, so he won't be racing in Baku.
It's going to be interesting to see who they put in the car, though.
Yeah.
I mean, because apparently they've asked for Ollie Behrman, they've requested Ollie Behrman. However, Ferrari still need to let him go. So if they don't, are they going to stick Fittipaldi in there? Because Fittipaldi is now racing over an IndyCar, so they can't do that. Are they going to stick another Ferrari driver academy? Are they going to try and get Mick or Lawson or something like that? It's going to be interesting to see what they do. But even if they stick Behrman in the car, it's going to be a great testing session for him. Just to get used to the cars, get used to racing in the Haas, in the team, on a race weekend. So, do you know what? I think they'll be going, do you know what? We've kind of profited out of this race ban because we're giving Behrman the brilliant chance to get some practice before next season.
Completely agree with you there. So it will definitely be interesting, to see what happens from there.
But that's it. That was the Italian Grand Prix. What a Grand Prix it was. And we're just coming up to this brilliant end of the season where all of the cars are in it, and we've possibly got 3 drivers in the drivers, which is going to be brilliant. But thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next podcast.